Sports Radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Gotta leave town, got another apartment. Spent on my rent, girl, you know I enjoyed it, yeah!
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is Sports Daily on a Friday here on KFH. Tommy Castor, Chad Chambers producing the program. Jacob Albracht getting connected here shortly will join us here as soon as he can. Hope you're having a great Friday. Thank you so much for listening here on KFH and also for viewing our video stream. You can check that out on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. And you can stream us live there, watch us, leave comments right there on the screen. We've got a big show here for you today as we wrap up the work week, getting everything out on the table here as it relates to conference realignment, as it relates to the Major League Baseball trade deadline. We're going to look at training camp in the NFL and a whole lot more. Do we have Jacob connected? Are you here with us, Jacob?
Yeah, I'm here. Chad
Okay.
Chad was playing a trick on me. No, we're good. Welcome, Tom. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you. Happy Friday.
It's been a late night of trying to keep up with the latest in conference realignment. Up late last night, just like trying to take it all in with the rumors and the shakings and the dealings. And, we'll take a look at it and give you our best guesses, the latest. I think we've sort of, and we wondered about this, like if one team makes a move, does it reopen everything all over again? It's always felt like, to me, there was one more major shift coming before whatever happens with the ACC as their deal gets done, right? It's felt like there was one more, expansion, whether that was into, San Diego State or UConn's been mentioned, but it's Colorado. It's Colorado, and does that make the first domino of a bigger, exodus or shifting? I don't know, but it is a really strange time now. And, there's a part of this that I kind of take any joy in this. I'm excited Colorado's back in the Big 12. Don't get me wrong. I like it. I think it's fun. I think it's better for Colorado, whatever. But I don't want to see the Pac-12 go up in flames. I don't want to see any of the Power 5 go up in flames. But it does feel like, Tommy, and we were texting back and forth last night, that there's one too many leagues in this thing, right? Like, I don't know how all 5 survive. I mean, you could expand to get in there, but does it make more sense to have 4? I don't know, but something still feels uneasy about this. And, I mean, just catch your breath and hold your breath, because this, if nothing else was going to light a fire under the Pac-12, this will now. And, they've been trying to wait and stall, and clearly at least one member school there was tired of that game, and that was Colorado, and they jumped over. And the Big 12 has made it really easy to do that, because if you're a Power 5 school, their contract says with the networks, you can just come right in and get full value, right? Not hard to do.
Yeah, and I definitely think that we're on a slippery slope where the Pac-12 is on life support. And I think that that's been kind of teetering on the edge for a while. And we've been hearing all these different things about their media deal, blah, 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 blah. Nothing has come to fruition. And even the Pac-12, and this is the gall that the Pac-12 has, issued a statement after Colorado left the conference, or announced their intentions to leave the conference, saying that nothing changes with the Pac-12 and that they are going to expand. And as soon as that media rights deal is done, just you wait. We're going to expand. and absolutely zero people believe them. That is not the
Well, what are you
case
going to
whatsoever.
expand to? Right? Like,
Right.
that's fine if you want to expand. To me, it makes more sense to expand before you're at the negotiating table on
Yeah.
a TV deal. I just don't, I don't, well, I think I do know. I think I do know what the problem is, that they don't have a deal. Like, there's no
Yeah.
deal that they want. I mean, I think that's the problem. And, in its simplest form, the Big 12 jumping the gun and getting the deal done first seems like the linchpin in all of this, right? The Pac 12 deal went away when that happened because the networks the Pac 12 was going to negotiate with just signed a deal with somebody else. And, look, the other beauty of that deal is it's short for the Big 12, right? And so even if, and I think it's possible, even if when all of the dust settles, the Big 12 doesn't have the biggest deal, right? And as far as the Pac-12 and the ACC and all that, they've got such a short one that they can just renegotiate. What is it, like 4 years? Like, it's not very long.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so there's two parts of it that were, I suppose, a little bit risky on the Big 12's part to go and break your deal early and go to the table early. But, to give yourself the assurances that you could expand within it sets yourself up for the next deal. That's when the Big 12 is probably going to, pay off. All of this will pay off at the next negotiating window. And that's sort of the timeline I think the Big 12 is working through. Not the one they just signed, but whenever that next one comes, they want to position themselves. Now they have the ticket to literally expand any Power 5 school. The presidents have to sign off on it, but, the networks, they're kind of stuck with it. And then if you can do what he's trying to do with basketball, which UConn is probably the most hotly rumored team possible to do. Now, UConn wouldn't get a full share, which simplifies things, quite frankly, because their football team's not that good. And so if you're going to have presidents sign off on bringing in a power football school, well, that's the easy way to do it. They just take a little less money, but they expand your basketball brand. Now you get to that deal, and that's when you start talking big bucks. And that's when you start talking, maybe we can expand out basketball. I think that's the play by the Big 12. I think the deal that they just did was more about making sure they could get one done and putting in language that helps them expand where they want to be before they make the next deal. I mean, that's what this all looks like to me, Tommy. I think they're still going. I don't think it's going to be UConn. Oregon or Washington. I think it's probably more likely that it's like UConn or Arizona and Utah or something like that. I don't know, but this thing has gotten crazy, overnight, and it was really what we'd all waited for. Who's going to be the first school that's sick of waiting on the Pac-12? And it was Colorado.
Right. And I think that you can, by process of elimination, figure out more than likely if there's going to be another Pac-12 school, what school that's going to be. The Big 12, they don't care about Oregon State or Washington State. That doesn't move the needle. They don't care about Stanford or Cal. I think that Washington is going to be more of like a Big 10 potential school. That just seems to kind of fit their brand, I think. I mean, if that's the way that if they want to expand, I mean, I think that's one school. I think they would be more likely to end up in the Big 10 than in the Big 12. I've all along, I've said Arizona and Arizona State makes sense. And I think that maybe even Utah, if they're interested, although I don't think Utah really is, I think that those four, I still go back to those four corner schools as being the best fit for the Big 12 if you're going to raid from the Pac-12 even further.
Let's swing for the fences here, though, if we're the Big 12. So the report it was McMurphy yesterday who had this initial report on Colorado. And let me pull this up. So his hearing now is that the Big 12 is going to add between 1 and 3 schools to join Colorado in 24. They want to get to an even number. So the first thing you do, and I haven't read the full story, this is just based on his tweet. If that's the case, you can either, go get a group of 5 school like UConn to make it 1 and get to 14, or you can still go look for 2 more Pac-12s. Now, what gets really interesting is the Big 10 has made it pretty clear they don't want Oregon and Washington right now. Okay. If that's the case in your Oregon and Washington, do you consider, knowing that you can't get to the Big 10, and knowing the landscape of things now, are you really willing to ride it out? Or do you say, you know what, maybe we should go to the Big 12? And that's something nobody's considered, but that's the first call I make, right? You poach Colorado, Washington, and Oregon. Okay. Well, I still like Arizona. So I think Arizona, from our perspective geographically and like what we care about would still be good. And it's, you're talking about Phoenix and, Oregon's a national brand, but you're talking about Phoenix and Seattle potentially. So I don't know, but that'd be the first two places I call. I mean, it wouldn't be an open invitation, right? At this point, because who would you rather have, Cal or UConn? Right? I'd rather have UConn.
I'd rather have UConn.
Yeah. For what the conference is trying to do,
Yeah.
right? If you're trying to create basketball exposure, if you're trying to create a more hip brand, nobody's hip to Cal, right? Like at least not the audience you're going for. Like you're going to Cal if you're really smart, if you're whatever. Stanford's interesting. I always wonder about Stanford. Great school, obviously. One of the biggest endowments in the country, I think. So Stanford's pretty interesting. But we don't hear about any of those schools because is athletics really the most important thing to them? Probably not. I mean, it's important. Don't get me wrong, but not to the same level it is around here. So I don't know. I'm very curious to see what sort of rumblings could still come from the bigger players left in the Pac-12. Because let's be real, Colorado's not a big player in the Pac-12. Colorado's an afterthought, if not for Coach Prime. And I love Colorado. And I think they're far more likely to succeed in the Big 12 than they were the Pac-12. Far more likely. I think Colorado has way more in common with this part of the country than that part of the country. And I think that kids from this part of the country now may be more likely to go, be athletes there. But there's room. And I mean, swing for the fences here. You start with Washington and Oregon and Arizona, and you see if you can get two more of them. And I suppose if you get three, you take all three. But I mean, that'd be pretty much it too, by the way. Like if you could do that, you'd be pretty good.
I think the Pacific Northwest gets forgotten about a little bit. If you want to bump up your football pedigree, it ain't bad to have Washington and Oregon on your roster. I mean, especially Washington, they're one of the best programs in the country, and they will be, right?
Both of those teams have played in CFPs.
100%. And so I think a lot of it is because of the location and because their games are oftentimes late. But we even pay more attention, I would say, to USC, UCLA, like the California schools, than we even do the Pacific Northwest. Like they get forgotten about sometimes. But if you want to grow that football pedigree, those are not bad schools to bring over to the Big 12. Basketball is a little bit different. Washington doesn't typically have a strong basketball product. Oregon does, though. Dana Altman's done a really good job at Oregon, and their basketball program has grown over the years. So I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. I know that at least Washington, I don't know about Oregon, but I know at least Washington has coveted the Big Ten. But if that doesn't look like that's a reality, I mean, what's going to be better for you? Hanging on a lifeboat with the rest of the teams in the Pac-12 that nobody wants, or jumping ship and going to a strengthening Big 12?
Well, let's see what kind of salesman too, Brett Yormark is. So the deal with the one that they just signed runs through at least 2030, 31. So that'd be another, when it kicks in, and I can't remember if it kicks in immediately, but it's what? That would be 6 or 7 years. So I was under it by just a little bit. But if you're looking big picture here, and Yormark's got us all sold, right? Like we're all bought in.
Yeah.
But if you can go knock on those doors and say, here's the deal. The Big Ten doesn't want you. They've made that crystal clear. Like they're doing their thing, but we do. And we can do this now. You may sit here, and maybe the Pac-12 does get a bigger deal, right? Maybe it gets a bigger deal. Maybe the ACC, I don't know what's going to happen with the ACC. The Big 12 gets to renegotiate, by the way, before the ACC does. Again, the Big 12 can go again before the ACC does. But you can sit there in this vision that I think is becoming clear. Like this has always been about the next one. Right? We have this window now to build this thing up, build this brand up, do all of these things over the next 5 or 6 years. Then we get to bring that to the table with the partners we already have, by the way. And that's where I think they could really get back into the mix here. And it's interesting to see it. I don't know what else is on the table for those schools? That's the other, part of the sale that comes in. Like if you're Oregon, if you're Washington, if you're Arizona, no offense to Arizona State, like what is the alternative now? Colorado's out. The ACC can't do a lot right now. The Big Ten and the SEC look like they're done for a while. Are you really going to sit and wait and hope that those two conferences come calling? Because I sort of have a feeling if they wanted you, they'd already come calling. Because the ESPN's not going to mess with the SEC. Like if the SEC decided, hey, we want to add Oregon, it'd say, yes, sir, let's do it. Yep. Okay, sounds good. So, it doesn't seem like their options are very good. You could anchor whatever the Pac-12 looks like. Okay, that's one option. Or you read the writing on the wall. And I don't want the Pac-12 to die. I want the Pac-12 to survive somehow. Or I don't care if the Pac-12 survives. I don't want any of the schools in the Pac-12 to get left behind. The conferences themselves that don't really mean a lot to me. It's the schools in them that I don't want to see. Like, I don't want to see anybody have to go from, being a major player to not being one. That sucks. As somebody who, went to a college who went from Division I to Division II, and it just it crushed the alumni and the community when that happened, and they still haven't been able to get, back up to that level. Like, that's what I don't want to see that happen to anybody. So at the end of the day, I hope everybody survives. But man, the Big 12 now that they got Colorado, it feels like they've got a big old opportunity to go and make the big final strike here.
And I think it's okay for us to shift our mindset a little bit with the Big 12. Colorado leaves, they're joining the Big 12. And then I think that the next thought is, okay, let's find one more school. This is perception. Let's find one more school that can join alongside of Colorado. And there's a list of is it Memphis? Is it UConn? Is it Arizona? And so on and so forth. How about all of them? I think it's okay to start thinking bigger, because Brett Yormark has done that during his tenure as the commissioner of the Big 12, thinking bigger. He's the one that went out and got 4 American Conference schools. He's already gotten a Pac-12 school. Let's think bigger. I think it's okay to think, man, maybe there are multiple more schools that can join, as opposed to let's find one other one in addition to Colorado.
I think they want to go bigger first. I think they want to try that, kick the tires on it, and then say, look, I'm fine if it's UConn.
What do you have to lose? You have nothing to lose if you go.
You have
try to
nothing
go big.
to lose, and there's no real immediate urgency other than the iron is hot and you'd like to strike. But if it's just UConn, I'm okay with that, because I think that UConn really does help what I think is coming with basketball, and maybe it does with football. And oh, by the way, having UConn in your back pocket, it doesn't hurt when ESPN's literally next door, right? ESPN loves UConn. And if women's basketball continues to grow, UConn is a major value. And they're probably not going to have the full earning potential, at least in this deal, but they're going to go look at what the Big Ten media deal is.
Yeah.
And then look at the Big 12. It's not even million or something. Maybe it's 10 million. It's not very much compared to what the Big 12 is. So UConn's probably going to be pretty happy with whatever they're offered. If the rest of the schools now, there's some travel issues. You've got West Virginia and UCF now, but there's a long distance between UCF and UConn, Tommy. It's not you get to just be on the East Coast and that solves everything. No, UConn would be pretty much on there on an island with a little bit of Cincinnati and West Virginia.
You think we would ever see UCF taking on Washington? If that ever happened, I mean, that's a cross country flight.
No,
that's corner to corner.
You don't have to do that stuff, by the way.
Yeah.
You just schedule around it. Some people really worry, and I know administrators worry about that because they have to, right? It impacts their wallets, but nobody cares about that, right? You're flying private, deal with it, coaches. You don't have to get on a bus and drive across the country. You're on a 5-hour flight instead of a 3-hour flight. You'll be all right. But they'll figure that out anyway, because when you have that many teams, you can break up in divisions, and the divisions don't really have to play each other. You just don't have to do it until a championship game, right? And so that part of it, I think I've never had an issue with the geography of it. You can throw geography. Paul brought that up yesterday about, the Big 12 having an advantage because it's anchored right in the middle of the country. Man, I don't think anybody cares about that anymore. Like, as long as you can get the travel done for your other sports, and I think that you just have to get creative in scheduling, the travel for football, men's basketball, and I think women's basketball is going to get into this too. It's not really that big a deal because you're flying everywhere. Like, you don't really have to mess with it too much. So I think it's fine. I would be fine if it ends at UConn. I think that's good. That leaves us satisfied. But boy, it feels like there's an opportunity to go even bigger than that. And maybe you can add UConn and some others. I don't know. And I wouldn't cap it either. Like, if it's the big 16 or 18, again, like, who cares? Like, just survival of the fittest in the Big 12 right now looks the fittest of the what are we calling them now? The prestigious three, I've heard, like whatever they're called, the not SEC Big 10. Get bigger. That's the only way we survive. We've said this for 3 years now. Get big. Get big. Big 12 strikes again. Colorado's in. Here we go. 869-1240. You can weigh in. Love having everybody here today on the program. We'll have some giveaways. We'll give away some HTO. We'll give away some Wichita Wind Surge ticket vouchers. All kinds of good stuff coming up on the program today. Massive needle-moving, ground-shaking injury from training camp yesterday. Potentially 2 of them. We'll have it on Sports Daily next.
Sports and sports talk. We do it, and we do it well.
Look at this ball go!
97.5 and 1240 KFH. The commercials are over.
Yo, I haven't got all day.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. It's Albracht and Castor. Glad to be here with you today on this weekending edition of Sports Daily. Tommy, everybody holding their collective breaths yesterday as Joe Burrow carted off. It's always like Joe Burrow carted off. And then the videos start coming. Joe Burrow carted off. And then the video of the play comes and you see him go up lame. And it's like, no. I think even the biggest Chiefs fans are like, don't do this. Like, we got to have Burrow. We got to have Burrow in here. It looks like it's a calf and not an Achilles, at least according to, and I think, Tommy, if it was an Achilles by now this morning, we would be seeing that, and we're still seeing calf. So that seems to be good news. Now, those calf strains, though, depending on the severity, can last a long time. Like, they can last several months or several weeks. That part of it becomes the question. Joe Burrow still can't get through a training camp for whatever reason. But, man, that sucked yesterday when we saw that. And it was like, please don't do that. Like, the first couple of weeks of training camp are the worst. I hate them.
Is there any reason why moving forward, Joe Burrow should continue participating in training camp every year?
No,
I mean,
but
he
wants to.
I get it, but this is like legitimately the third year in a row that he has had injuries during training camp. Like, he had an appendix that burst, I think, a year ago. He was still coming off of the torn ACL 2 seasons ago. And now this. I mean, I get the purpose of training camp. I understand it. I'm on board with it. But, man, the Bengals' hopes and dreams rest on the shoulders of Joe Burrow in the same way that Patrick Mahomes, for the Chiefs, it's kind of that same situation. I don't know why you even risk it with Burrow in training camp. Like, have him do the bare minimum if you're going to have him participate, because you cannot risk having him hurt. And the thing is, there's a history of it. If there wasn't, it'd be different, but there is. So, yeah, I mean, do everything you can to prevent that.
Let's be fair. An appendix has nothing to do with anything. That could happen when you're sitting on the toilet. The knee was a recovery from an in-season injury, and the other training camp he had was the COVID year. So, in fairness, this is the first time something in training camp actually affected it. But he has started season slowly before he's come on. So, I mean, I think it does have an impact. And I think, do we need to see him in games? I don't know. Right. But the first thing we got to do is let's say the timetable is it's a 3-week recovery on the calf. Let's take 5, right? Like, let's make not, that's where you don't want, if it's a tissue injury, you have to be overly protective of that. But, we'll see how critical this is. The other significant injury, and this one is far more significant, at least at the moment, is Jalen Ramsey. A big-time injury that will certainly take him out for part of the regular season. For a Dolphins team that is supposed to have a pretty good defense this year, supposed to be a Super Bowl contender, and I think if healthy, they certainly could be. But again, training camp, especially early on, Tommy, is and it's almost like we forget it every year, at least I do, just how brutal the first few weeks of training camp typically are as guys get acclimated back up to speed, how many dang injuries we see.
Yeah, and it's been made very clear, and everybody knows by now how grueling Andy Reid's training camps are. Like, he's known for that with the Chiefs. I mean, there's a reason why Rashee Rice lost his lunch on day 1 of training camp, because Andy Reid, and I'm sure other coaches around the league do the same thing. They put these guys through the ringer to get started. And the whole purpose of that, to your point, is to get them acclimated and get them back up to game ready speed. Some of them I'm sure train, or most of them train during the off season, but you got to believe that there are at least some that maybe aren't quite ready to go, and these teams are investing a lot of money in them, and training camp gives you an opportunity to do that. That being said, I think that there is an argument that can be made that if you've got a player or players that, number one, have a history of injuries in training camp, number two, you're investing a lot of money in, and number three, you feel confident that they are at game speed already and you don't need to necessarily work them super hard, let them be off to the side. You don't have to have them run suicides and things like that. Like, I think that it's okay to say, all right, let's take a step back on some of these guys.
Yeah, but you have to be able to get up to speed, or it's just going to happen in the regular season. There are coaches, and you heard reporters like coaches hate this time. It's something about the schedule or the timetable that they would like to see altered. I don't know enough about that. Maybe they want it to start a little earlier so they can take it slower. The training camp's been cut, practice reps have been cut. Players don't want to put themselves at risk as much. I don't know what the answer is. All I know is it sucks. Like, we got to kind of sit here and just wait and see. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. Hopefully you don't see. We almost always see one or two like season altering type things happen, and it's just like, bleh. I mean, we've seen it with the Chiefs. Kadarius Toney. Who knows what that recovery looks like. So we'll see. The Jalen Ramsey thing is significant, but you're talking about two moments there that significantly alter the landscape of the AFC. I mean, they do. Those are two, Pro Bowl players that may not be there at the start of the season for two teams that feel like they have a chance to win a Super Bowl. Hold your breath for the team that you follow. Like, for Chiefs fans, you just hold your breath and hope everybody makes it through. And they haven't. Kadarius Toney's already out. Not that, Kadarius Toney's wasn't even when they were really practicing, but it stinks. Other NFL things happening. Dalvin Cook to the Jets after Aaron Rodgers took his pay cut. They probably are going to have the most financial wherewithal to go after Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook said it seemed something like, the chances are high. I know he wants to go to Miami, but, for Breece Hall, it looks like this year, at least, if that happens, his role would be cut somewhat. But then you also, there were reports that the Jets wanted to draft Jahmyr Gibbs had he been there. They bring in Nathaniel Hackett, who's a running back by committee guy. Maybe the plan has always been, to attack it with two different people, with Breece Hall being the primary ball carrier. And so this doesn't change much, but certainly it's something to keep an eye on for the former Northwest Grizzly as we look at him coming off of an injury. We want to see him be awesome, but I suppose, Tommy, in the shortest term, like for this year only, as he's coming off a major injury, may not be the worst thing in the world for his career to take it a little easier this year. But, we just want to see it because he was so good when he was out there last year, but certainly Dalvin Cook could have an impact on what he does this year.
Yeah, what I don't want to have happen with Breece Hall is that the Jets bring in Dalvin Cook and Aaron Rodgers maybe feels more comfortable with the veteran, and Nathaniel Hackett feels more comfortable with the veteran. And then all of a sudden you see this, great talent in Breece Hall, who unfortunately had his season cut short by injury, start to get relegated a little bit to backup role and things like that. And then all of a sudden the perception can start to change. And I don't want to see that happen with Breece Hall. So I'm okay with the running back by committee for this season as Hall is coming off of that knee injury. What I don't want to see happen is Dalvin Cook be brought in to be the quote unquote starter, and then Breece Hall really doesn't get a chance to shine at all.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen because Breece Hall's too talented. I think Aaron Rodgers wants to win, and at least as a ball carrier, maybe I don't know about as a pass catcher, which matters to Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers, remember, whether it was Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams for a while, right? Both those guys succeeded, and that didn't really take much away from Aaron Jones. Whether it's been Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, right? Aaron Rodgers is comfortable with this. So, and the other thing too for Breece Hall is like the more tread on the tires as he goes through isn't a bad thing. And you want him to have a chance to win a Super Bowl, right? How cool would that be? So Dalvin Cook makes him better. It's not all bad, but something to watch for certainly is Dalvin Cook and how it affects one of our own. All kinds of other stuff happening in these training camps, Tommy. For the Chiefs, they've made it through the last couple of days, and it's been okay because they haven't had big injuries. I mean, that's really all we look for at this point, right? Sky Moore's looked good in practice. I think you're starting to see in some of this practice video what I've always hammered for Sky Moore. Like the dude seems like he could catch anything. He's got those long arms, like he goes and grabs balls. I don't know. We're starting to see some videos where it's like, that's what I'm talking about. Like that's why I think that he could become a go-to guy, because he's going to go get balls if they're not perfect. And so we just watched that. Does that become the biggest storyline for you to watch these receivers now in camp? I mean, I don't know what else we really need to see out of Chiefs camp other than now preparation for the inevitability of not having Kadarius Toney on the field for whatever
Well, I
amount
think
of time.
that's I think that's still number 2 behind Chris Jones. Like we've got to keep an eye on the Chris Jones situation.
I'm talking
That's
about in
one.
practice, like things
For
happening
sure.
in practice.
But storylines out of training camp, it's the fact that Chris Jones
No question.
is continuing to rack up $50,000 fines every day. He's not there again today. That's 6 days in a row. So we're looking at $300,000 in fines right now with Chris Jones that are mandatory. That's still number 1. But yes, number 2, at least on the field, the number 1 on the field is how the whole wide receiver room is going to pan out.
I think it'll be okay. I really do. Like, I think that they can move on and just what we've talked about all week. Kadarius Toney's just icing on the cake. I think that room, if healthy, has a chance to be fine, and better, quite frankly, than it was a year ago. I mean, that's the reality. Like, how good was that room even last year? And they went out and they won a Super Bowl. I think they'll be okay. We'll watch Joe Burrow. So there's one other really, really interesting storyline. Well, 2 things we haven't talked about. One, let's get to this real quick because let me give you a tease. This Sean Payton, Nathaniel Hackett stuff, give me all of it. Give me all of it. Yeah, we'll hit that in the next hour. So that's the big one I want to talk about. But real quick before we take a break here, Tommy. Tyreek Hill saying he wants to go into the Hall of Fame as a Dolphin. I know that ruffled feathers, but then it's like, well, you said you're only going to play till you're 30. Like which is it? Because and now he's saying I could play this game forever, and I don't know. Like he said he talked to his dad and he's pondering life. Number one, if and probably when Tyreek Hill ultimately goes to the Hall of Fame, do you think it should be a Chief, or if he keeps, like he did last year with the Dolphins, should it be a Dolphin? People, I know that makes Chiefs fans mad, but guys, the reality is like Miami paid him. Like of course he's going to have some allegiance there. The Chiefs didn't. Like, don't be so surprised if he wants to go in as a Dolphin. They paid him.
I don't care. Tyreek Hill is going to talk, and that's what he does. That's what he's always done.
Look
I don't
to
care.
the future. Like if he went in as a Dolphin, would you care?
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me one way or another. I'm tired. Honestly, I'm tired of talking Tyreek Hill because he's been gone for over a year now, and he's on a different team. He was great when he played for the Chiefs. God bless him for what he did. He's not a Chief anymore. I don't care. I don't care what he does. And if he wants to go into the Hall of Fame as a Dolphin, cool. Like, that's great.
He ain't retiring at 30. One thing he does have a good grasp of is how to keep attention on him, as he has like his podcast.
Yeah.
If that's the world he's trying to get into, he does do a good job of making people pay attention to him. I'll give him that. 869-1240 is the number to call. We'll come back. We'll give something away. We'll get into this Sean Payton, Nathaniel Hackett beef. I don't know if Nathaniel Hackett won. 869-1240. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this.
Oh, okay, take it easy. We're going on the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Tommy, I'm playing a little Russian roulette here on the radio. So I got a landline yesterday for the house. Now I know. Listen,
What?
everybody, I get it.
Are
So
you 90?
no, here's the deal, and it is interesting. So I don't want my kids to have cell phones. Like, don't want them to have them until they're like in high school if I can avoid it. So there are times now where it's like, okay, but the reality is in the current world, like, how are they going to get in touch with us if they need us? Like, and we're not there. And we're sort of, whether with their babies, whether with the babysitter or whatever. It's like, why don't we just get, like, do they still do landlines? So we look it up and we're like, oh, look at there. They still do landlines. And so I'm like, I'll just get them a landline. And if they need anything, they can call us. They can call 911 an emergency and all these things, and we don't have to get them a cell phone. And so I got this landline, and it was pretty funny watching them try to use it. I had them like call their Nana last night, and they're like holding it upside down and backwards. They don't know how to dial a number. I'm like, God, how the world has changed so fast. Right? It's crazy. These kids have never seen one of these before. But it's sitting right here. I'll show it to you if you're on the video stream. So they still make them, still got one. But I have to now like hook it up to it all runs through internet now. And so like it's hooked up. And I don't think I can turn that thing down, like the ringer off. So at any point here while we're on the air, that thing's like right next to me. You could hear a noise and be like, what is that?
Let's be real though. Like nobody probably has your number, right? Like it's
no,
not like
but I'm sure
people have a Rolodex
scammers,
of like your phone number on there now.
I'm sure scammers and telemarketers will just, dial it up at some point. And now it's like this curiosity. I'm like, well, let's just see if it ever goes off while I'm here. So if you ever hear that, yes, that is indeed a landline.
What's your next purchase going to be? A life alert bracelet? Is that the next thing on your list?
Well, that's
I've fallen and I can't get up.
That's what these do now. These Apple Watches, they life alert. Look, we'll see. I could be totally wrong, but if this helps me avoid getting my kids a cell phone for even like 1 or 2 years, it's totally going to be worth it.
Can I tell you the one thing that I know it's marketed towards elderly people, but I kind of want now is one of those rascal scooters. Those things look awesome. Like if I don't have to walk somewhere, like, and it doesn't look like it doesn't look like, I don't know, that it's an electric wheelchair. It looks like a fun little scooter. And so I would I would take that around everywhere.
I'm different than you in that. I don't like my greatest fear is that I get immobilized somehow, like as I get older, and I don't want to do that. And so like, even when we're at the TV studio and like in commercials, like, and I'm sure my co-anchors think I'm nuts. Like I get up and I just walk around a little bit. I've never like the radio is by far the longest I will ever sit. Like I hate it. If I'm in the studio there at our KFH studios and we're doing like the national shifts on the weekend, most of the time during those shows I'm standing up. I don't have that option here at home, so I have to sit here and like every commercial break I got to get up and move around. Like I don't like being set. It's like this fear. Like I don't want to ever be stuck. Anyway, it's not a bad time to be stuck like inside and cooled off because it is a billion degrees outside and will be for a while. We've been giving away iced tea each day this week in the spirit of that. This time, Jad, because the iced coffee is really good too and just as good in the hot weather, let's do a free tea card and let's do a free coffee card, which can be used on iced coffee or hot coffee if you want some hot coffee. We'll do that here real quick to our first caller to 869-1240. HTO available to you east. That's where the coffee is. Coffee is not available yet west, but the iced tea is available west. HTO, by the way, also coming soon in Derby. And I will tell you this too, Tommy. Christmas in July at the store, 20 to 30% off of all the coolers and drinkware, Yeti, Hydro Flask, Pelican. So today and tomorrow, if you're looking for any of that stuff, it's 20 to 30% off inside the store there. So go check that out too if you're needing any of that to keep your drinks cool during this hot weather. Austin says there are kids, they will get cell phones sooner than you think. Just wait and see. Look, I get it. Now listen, I am very willing to be the dad of the only kids in school that don't have cell phones. Now, I'm also a bit of a sucker if they poured it on thick to me but like I will be perfectly content being like if other parents judge me like, oh, I don't care about that at all. I would prefer my kids to get their cell phones when I got my cell phone, which was I think at like 16 or 17 years old. Like when you start driving, I'll put a cell phone in your hand because I can track you that way.
I didn't get mine until I was in college. That was like a freshman in college, and I moved away. That was probably the first time I got that. I don't know. I think that there's something to be said for having a family cell phone that stays in the house, and when the kids go out, they take it with them and bring it back, but it's not theirs. Like, I'm okay with that too. I just know there are kids out there that are like 7 and have their own cell phones. I can't get on board with that.
Well, I'm not judging anything. People can do whatever they want. I just know, like, that's what a landline is. Everyone's like, well, why don't you just get an old cell phone and hook it up and then put it in the house? I'm like, guys, that's a landline. That's what that is. And you know what you can't do on a landline? Snapchat.
True.
I'm in. Go make fun of me all you want. I can't wait to like have to make some call to, a service company and get on my house phone and do it. Do it with the house phone instead of my cell phone. It's 1985 here at the Albracht household. Get on board. Good luck to our HDO giveaway contestants there. We'll come back. An interesting tweet about realignment that Tommy has earthed up. We'll get to that. We'll get into the Sean Payton, Nathaniel Hackett beef, all coming for you on Sports Daily. Hour number 2. All right, welcome back, everybody. Congratulations to Terry for winning our HTO. If you're looking for coolers or fancy drink cups, HTO, Hydro Flask, Pelican, 20 to 30% off HTO this week. Just today and tomorrow, Friday and Saturday only. So you can check that out. A lot of cell phone and phone comments here. Mike said he got his back when you had to buy minutes and unlimited off-peak time, late 90s. Mine would have been like 2002, I think, is when. And when I say cell phone, it was like the old brick. I basically just took my mom's with me. That was the equivalent. Like I just took my mom's. And then as I was trying to grow my lawn mowing business, we put one of my own of those Nokias on my family plan. That's what really spurred mine.
I remember getting my first flip phone, probably, 2005, 2006.
I don't even remember when that would have been.
Like that was a big deal. I also remember, I don't know if you had to do this, but I have a girlfriend in college and I want to talk to her, but we've got minutes, so we have to wait until after 9 p.m. Like I'll call you at 9:03, and then we'll talk until 2 a.m. and I'll be exhausted, but at least I'm not using our minutes up because I knew my parents would yell at me. That was my reality.
I remember when I found out you got charged per text message. It was like 10 cents a text.
Yeah.
It was in college, and my dad called me. He was like, "What the hell is going on?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "We have $340 in text messages." And I'm like, "Really? Well, I did not know that is how that worked."
Kids these days will never know the struggles.
Yeah, I had to pay that one back real quick.
Yep.
Cool. I was digging through old phones, and you said flip phone. I had one of those. It was kind of like a BlackBerry where all the buttons were, where you're like fast, rapid fire. That was probably my favorite phone I ever had. So I found that phone not too long ago, and it was like in a box, and the charger was in there. And I was like, "Oh, let me plug this in." And I plugged it in, and this is like a left turn, but I thought this was really cool. One of my best friends died, and when I turned that phone on, like it pulled up all the old messages, and I had like this text thread with him. Like that was the phone I had when all that happened. So it was really cool to go back. Like it was this weird moment. But if you ever find an old phone like that, plug it in and go back and look at some of that stuff, because I don't think it cleared like they clear now. And so it's just sitting there. Like all these old text messages are sitting there with people I had. That was really cool. And then Jad said his first cell phone was a going off to college gift. Jad doesn't think I'll be able to hold off that long either. It's going to be when they get mobile, when they start moving around and you need to be able to get in touch with them, which, I don't, when does that happen? When they're like 12, 13, 14? Like if I can get to 14, I'll win. That's my goal, right? That's sort of the goal I have. It's probably very unrealistic, but for the meantime, we're going to have a landline, and they can have fun with that. They were pretty into it last night. It was hilarious watching them try to use it. It was just like, I suppose they need to just put it on speakerphone.
Well, speaking of
welcome
landlines,
back in.
Speaking of landlines, do you remember when it took your landline? You guys might be too young for this. When it took your landline to be able to connect to the internet at all?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Sure.
Yeah, dial up.
Oh man,
you can't use the phone.
Yeah, you had your computer in the other room, and then like your mom would yell and be like, "I'm expecting a call. Get off the internet." Like, absolutely.
Oh yeah, that was the wheelhouse for us. Like we were right there. That would have been like, I don't know, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and you had to have the minute CDs from AOL to even be able to. Like it was a hot mess. The internet was a hot mess back then.
And I didn't want to ever get off the internet because I'm probably illegally downloading songs from Napster. There's just a lot going on during that time.
Yeah, it would take 6.5 hours to download a Metallica song off Napster, and
you never really knew if it was actually going to be Metallica or not.
Yeah, nobody gets to use the internet. While I'm gonna change every sound the computer makes to like fart noises and Simpsons sound bites, and download Metallica on Napster. That was we were there, Jad. That was very much in our wheelhouse. Welcome back into Sports Daily, everybody. This is a sports show here with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor, living back the good old days of phones. Can make fun of me because I got a landline yesterday. Make fun all you want. It's a strategy. There's a couple of things happening. Let's get to, before we get to Oregon Big 12 rumblings that Tommy unearthed from, people that are not just random people on the internet. Let's look at this Sean Payton, Nathaniel Hackett thing. I don't know what to make of this, other than I love it. Let me start there. I love it that Sean Payton just absolutely went nuclear on Nathaniel Hackett and the job he did in Denver last year. So what I can't decide is Sean Payton just like a jerk here, or is he just trying to rally the wagons and sort of offset from his players the blame from what things were a year ago? No matter what it is, it enhances the pressure, I think, on Sean Payton to, okay, well, if it was so bad, you better hope you make it better. What does that say about you, right? Like it's this really interesting thing and beef now between the Broncos and the Jets, and I'm here for all of it, but I really out of left field, Tom.
I was definitely okay with everything that Sean Payton said until he started going after the Jets. I'm like, just, if you want to rally the troops in Denver, and talk about how bad things were there and you want to turn it around and all the different ways you're doing that, that's fine. I have no issue with that whatsoever. Stay in your lane and don't call out the Jets. And I understand that he was trying to do that, like to basically deflect away to Nathaniel Hackett. The whole thought process is, hey, he's got Russell Wilson now, and he's fully convinced, and he's trying to be strategic here to let everybody know that the fault of the Broncos was not on Russell Wilson last year. It was on Nathaniel Hackett. On top of that, as he's talking about the Broncos, he's putting that responsibility on his own shoulders. So he's trying to take it away from Russell Wilson and put it on his own shoulders. And I get why. Russell's got a significant amount of pressure this year to show that last year was a fluke and that he is still worth that contract and he is still a high caliber quarterback in the National Football League. So I think Sean Payton, who's been around for a long time and has worked with quarterbacks for a long time, knows that the best way to get the most out of Russell Wilson is to put as much pressure as possible on his own shoulders, not Russell's.
That's what I mean. And I do sort of agree with that. It did veer into a lane, though, with the Hard Knocks chatter and all that stuff. And Robert Saleh was like, I'm not going to acknowledge him. He can say whatever he wants. We're doing something right if you got to talk about us when we don't play until week 5. I think maybe there's not that much pressure on Sean Payton. And so if there's not, and there probably isn't, at least in this first year, like the interesting thing about the Sean Payton hire to me was at first when he took that job, I was like, why would he do that? But then I thought about it and I was like, well, it's actually not that bad an idea because no matter what happens this year, it's not going to get blamed on him. It's going to get blamed on Russell Wilson.
Right.
And he can wash his hands of that and he won't be tied to it. But that sort of goes away when you say things like this. Like it wasn't Russ, it was Hackett. And so I don't know. I get the strategy. They're going to have to we talked about this a little bit yesterday. What are the chances, do you think? Because I don't think you and I have talked about this, Tommy. Like, what are the chances that Denver is closer to what we thought they might be able to be last year than what they ultimately were? Like, what are the chances that this is a playoff contender? Because I think it's reasonable, right? They're still pretty talented on that roster. If Russ plays better, and he started to play better, by the way, at the end of the year, they could be a playoff contender. Like, is it that outlandish to think that they're in the mix for? I mean, they're not going to overtake the Chiefs or anything, but they could be in the mix for a wild card.
Yes, but simply because of the Sean Payton effect. Like that's the only reason why, in my mind. It's been a long time since Denver has had a competent head coach running things. I mean, I don't know how far you have to go back. John Fox, maybe. Gary Kubiak. I don't know. I mean, obviously Mike Shanahan. Maybe I'm missing someone, but it's been bad for a while. Vance Joseph was not competent. Vic Fangio. I don't think was competent as a head coach. He was a good defensive guy, but I'm not sure he was capable of being a solid head coach in the league. And then we all know about Nathaniel Hackett. So it's been a long time since that has happened for this franchise. And so I do think that the Sean Payton effect, assuming that Payton can coach at the level that he did when he was with New Orleans for all those years, sure. I think that just solely because of that, you could say it's reasonable that they should be competing for a playoff spot.
I think they should be. Is there any chance they're better than the Chargers? I mean, it's the thing, and I don't think so. But maybe they become the third best team in the division. I mean, I think they will be the third best team in the division.
Yeah,
they're better than Oakland's going to be, or Vegas is going to be not good at all.
Yep.
That's going to be a disaster. Vegas is going to be in the mix to be like the worst team in football. Maybe not. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo can get it done. Denver's really interesting to me, and Sean Payton is really interesting to me because this is the other part of Sean Payton, Tommy. We got to see Sean Payton without Drew Brees too, right? There's another component to that, and I know we all just want to assume, but how's it gone for Bill Belichick post Tom Brady, right? Like sometimes these marriages between coaches and quarterbacks are perfect. There aren't a lot of Andy Reids, who have gotten it done at a high level at different places.
Yeah.
So, there's a chance Sean Payton's not as good as, he thinks he is, or we think he is either. Like he's had a Hall of Fame quarterback for all his success. And we'll see. It is one of the more interesting teams to watch, I think, next year that we have talked almost nothing about in this offseason. And that's probably a good thing until now, right? Now, Sean Payton has put the spotlight on them. Again, probably is easier just to sort of go about things quietly here. But for whatever reason, man, he just put you want to talk about sound bites being replayed over and over and over and over again. Like this is going to be revisited all season long if they're not good.
Yeah, he did this though. Remember when he first took over? I mean, talking about how the different special treatment type things that Russell Wilson had last year won't continue. And I mean, like he definitely came in when he was hired as head coach and thought, I've got to change the culture now. And I've got to be bold and dynamic and cast a vision and let everybody know that we are changing the course of this franchise, which has been bad for quite a while. And so I get the strategy of being bold. I get the strategy of being vocal because you're not only communicating to a fan base, but you're also communicating to your players in certain ways and letting them know how you feel about certain things and how you plan on turning things around. Again, the only issue that I had with all of it is I don't know if you necessarily should be poking another team like the Jets. And I get your trying to correlate Nathaniel Hackett with the failures that happened during his tenure in Denver. But man, I don't know, maybe stay in your lane a little bit more, but everything else I'm perfectly fine with.
Who has more wins this year, the Jets or the Broncos?
I think the Jets do.
I think the Jets do too. I don't know what the Vegas over under on wins for the Broncos is, but I'm just going to make one up. 7.
Okay.
What do you think? 7 over or under 7 wins?
I think I would take over. I can see them being a 500 team, like a 9-8, 8-9, somewhere around there. I would feel fairly confident in taking the over.
They were 5-12 last year, so they'd have to be 2 games better. Yeah, I'd put it right at that. I think 7.
Yeah, I don't know
if you
make it a 6.5 over under. I think I would be more comfortable taking the over.
7,
I think they can win 7. Yeah.
I think 7 is, but just look at the landscape of the AFC and the teams in it, assuming Joe Burrow is good to go. All right. I'm just like, let's look at this list. Are the Broncos better than any of the Bills, Dolphins, Patriots, or Jets for you?
I think they're better than the Patriots.
Okay. So there's 1. I think that's probably a wash, but okay. What about Chiefs, Chargers? No. Raiders, probably.
Yes.
Like I'd put them ahead of the Raiders, right?
Yep.
Bengals, Ravens, Steelers, or Browns?
Like they're better than the Browns.
Really? Oh, I don't.
I think
I don't at all.
I think they're better.
I
I don't
think
have any.
maybe the Steelers, but I'm not totally
Mm.
convinced on that. I actually think the Steelers have a chance to be pretty good.
Yeah,
Jags,
I have
Titans,
no
Colts,
confidence, by the way, in Deshaun Watson. So
Jags, Titans, Colts, Texans.
Texans, yes. Colts, yes.
I would say if man, if you made me pick the Colts or the Broncos, I'm not so sure. I think that's another wash with them, but there's not a lot of room for them to be, you know what I mean? Like they're clearly not
Yeah.
better than some of those teams. And so it's like,
For
boy,
sure.
like what?
Well,
You
and
better be
that goes
careful.
back to the original question as far as what the reasonable expectation should be for them. Should they be competing for a playoff spot? If the answer is yes, then that's fine. But I think
Well,
we need
they
to know
think they
exactly.
should be, or they don't bring
But
in Sean Payton.
right, but I think that you have to be reasonable in that. And competing for a playoff spot can mean a number of different things. In my mind, I'm thinking they're in the mix for a wild card, like the last wild card spot with a couple of weeks to go. Like that would be, in my mind, sort of where they live this next season. If they can sneak into the playoffs as the final wild card team, I think that's reasonable. I think that that's fair. If they miss out on the playoffs, I think it could go either way. But as far as like, I'm not suggesting that they're going to be a top wild card team or win a division or like be a high seed. I think it would be like down the stretch, can they compete for like the final AFC playoff spot?
Yeah, I think it's unlikely. It's just I love it though, man. I love the beef. I love the drama. Bring it on. Let's have it. Let's get more of it. I'm all for it. All for it. Okay, so the Cincinnati Bengals an hour ago, by the way, they had a funny. Well, what they thought's funny. It's not that funny actually. Everyone, please stop calling and offering us your calf muscles. It doesn't work like that. Joey will be back. The point of that is I think they're deflecting. It sounds like he's going to be okay. And so everybody, I think, including Chiefs fans, wants Joe Burrow on the field. I do. I love watching him play football. I love this dynamic being created between Chiefs, Bengals, Bills. I want that New Year's Eve game to have Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow squaring off again. So hopefully that's a positive update. Let's take a quick break. 869-1240. On the way out, we'll give away some Win Surge vouchers, good for a game of your choice. We'll give away a 4-pack of those vouchers right now to our first caller to 869-1240 on the IHOP hotline. While Jad gets that taken care of during the break, we're going to try and organize our thoughts. 2 interesting nuggets out in the world of realignment. And I guess we need to get ready for this season again, Tommy, where everybody just starts firing off missiles and reports and, so-and-so's uncle's husband's brother's cousin is a Pac-12, water boy, and here's what he's hearing kind of stuff. But hey, that's where we are. Colorado set this off again. We'll discuss the latest next on Sports Daily. All right, welcome back, everybody. Congratulations to Keith for winning some Win Surge vouchers there. All right, Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here. We have been making our way around. Jody Fortson apparently carted off at Chiefs practice, so we'll have to watch that. Some sort of arm injury as he was rolled up on. A couple of tweets that have come out. First, Craig Miller, who I believe is a Dallas radio personality, tweeted that he has a Pac-12 source saying Oregon is leaving and probably to the Big 12. Nothing confirmed. Stay tuned. And then, would be a big get for the Big 12, whatever. So again, I don't know. This is a well-placed, member of the media that's near the Big 12 headquarters that, has a lot of people following him. So just want to put out there that that's happened. And then Tommy just sent this to me during the break from somebody named Jim Williams. Now let's clarify what this is. Jim Williams, according to his bio, is a media consultant and former producer, but he's tweeting that the following schools have filed their paperwork asking now to join the Pac-12: Colorado State, San Diego State, SMU, UNLV, Tulane, USF, Memphis, Boise State, Fresno State, Tulsa, and Rice. Interesting, because a lot of those are AAC members now, some of them brand new AAC members. But this is what we mean, Tommy, and this is why, you can take it. So you've got reports saying that Oregon might be interested. We've seen that being reported for the last few days, and I don't know how much to read into any of this. What I do know is that conference realignment on social media is one of the wildest and strangest things ever, because everybody knows somebody who's heard something, right? And they sort of throw it out there. But if the Pac-12 decides to get aggressive and expand, and they then go poach a lot from the AAC and the American, which just had to reshuffle, right, from losing schools to the Big 12, that's where this stuff gets really tough when we think about Wichita State. And I do think about Wichita State all the time when we're talking about this realignment.
None of these schools that, they're being reported to filing paperwork to join the Pac-12 are major needle movers, and none of them, I don't feel like, they don't replace the schools that are leaving the Pac-12. However, there are some interesting ones in there. SMU is interesting. That's been rumored for a while. Tulane, they had a really good season last year, and that football program is on the come up. That's kind of interesting. South Florida, kind of interesting. We know about, Boise State. We know about San Diego State, like some of these other ones. None of them are major bombshells.
And look, just because they filed, it doesn't mean anything. If they haven't filed to join,
they haven't been invited, right? Like, they're filing paperwork. Right. It's not like they've been invited by the Pac-12 to join. But I wonder if the Pac-12 has to shift its mentality to more of a quantity-based conference.
Chance.
Like, let's have a bunch of teams. Chance. It's survive or die, right? Adapt or die.
Look, I'm gonna tell you this. The Pac-12 is not going to add Tulsa. Okay. There are some on here that would make some sense, right? Like Colorado State, maybe, San Diego State for sure, SMU for sure, UNLV for sure, and Memphis and Boise State possibly, right? But we got to remember that, the posturing of the Pac-12 forever. Now, the Pac-12 wouldn't take Big 12 teams looking for lifelines a while back. So are you making that dramatic a shift?
Well, times have changed. I mean,
but Tommy,
from
if the Pac-12, if Pac-12 leadership comes to the member institutions now and said, guys, we're going to be fine. We're going to add Rice and Tulane and South Florida. What do you think Oregon and Washington and Arizona are going to do? They'll be like, yeah, all right, you know what? Good luck with that. We're out. I mean, that's what they're going to do, because Big 12 will take them. I don't know that. That's why I don't put a whole lot of merit into that report. Like, that's not where the Pac-12 is headed right now. They are considering expansion, right? I totally get that. But they got to start at least shooting higher than that, because the Big 12 went and got really, big time group of 5 programs. big time. And there are some in that list. Like there are some teams in that list that would be very much worth having if the Pac-12 can get its nose out of the air on all its political and academic whatever. Like you go add Memphis, heck yeah. Like there are some teams in there that would make a lot of sense, I think. But it's still not going to be better than the Big 12.
Right. I wonder if with the Pac-12, a couple of these schools that maybe they had turned their nose up in the air about, they maybe go back to with their hat in their hands, like San Diego State, maybe Memphis. I don't know.
Well, I'm looking all the way back to like Texas Tech.
Sure.
Had a rumor to want to go out there, and like some others when Texas and Oklahoma left it, they were like, "Oh no, that does not fit our profile." How's your profile look now, Pac-12? Like you're in survival mode, and if the first call you make is not to the ACC, then you're doing it wrong. The first call they should make is to the ACC and say, what can we do here? Because
can we merge?
This is going to happen to you very soon. But if I'm the ACC, man, I'm probably doing the same thing the Big 12's doing. I'm probably giving some Pac-12 schools a call and say, hey, guys, maybe we can work something out here.
The only thing about the ACC though is that, I mean, there are reports that Florida State is ready to leave the ACC, probably Clemson, so they're not on super solid footing either right now. So they're not, I don't believe, at the same level of where the Big 12 is.
They have time on their side though, from those teams leaving.
They do. But I mean, I texted you this last night. I would not be surprised at all if when the dust settles, we see a Pac-12 ACC merger. I really think that becomes viable, right? Exactly.
A remainder of the ACC. Because look, if the Big Ten and the SEC come calling, any of those schools are going to leave. That's just the reality of it. That's what always happens. But the Big 12 could also get in the mix there. Like if you're creating a basketball conference and you're Duke, I mean, you answer the phone if the Big 12 calls with the brands that are in there, if they are ultimately able to add Arizona. Of course you do. So that's what when we say domino effect of the Colorado news, when you want to talk about domino effect, it's like, we see like geopolitical situations where it just takes one tiny spark or tinder to set things on fire. It has felt like that now for 6 months in college athletics, right? And Colorado may have been that tinder, right? Because Colorado is by like nowhere near the biggest needle mover in all of this. Like not even close, right? Yeah, we all like Coach Prime, but Colorado's nostalgic for the Big 12. It gets you into the Denver market. The prospects down the road are big. It's all great. But Colorado's not, the big fish here. But are they the fish that get the big fish moving, right? Like if you believe some of these reports about Oregon, that's a big fish. That may be the biggest fish still out there for anybody. And if the Big Ten and the SEC don't want you, they don't, by all accounts. If you're Oregon and you are a national brand, if you're Oregon and the Big 12 asked you to leave right now, I don't know how you stay.
Yeah, I don't either. And I guarantee you that Brett Yormark has made that ask.
Well, now he has,
did.
Yeah.
But he probably did a while ago too.
Well, sure.
But I would imagine that with the news of Colorado, and that's kind of the first domino to fall. Hey, look at your conference now.
Well, look, and Oregon has never been publicly, jerky about any of this, like Utah has, for instance, or at times the Arizona schools. But none of that matters, by the way. Like if if they were jerks the first time you called them, now that Colorado left, you just call them right back and say, "Hey guys, offer still stands. Let's let bygones be bygones. Here we go." This is wild stuff. And I think the most wild thing about it, Tommy, is how terrifying it felt, right, when Oklahoma and Texas left to where it is now for Big 12 people like us, like in this part of the world. Like that sucked. And so I feel really bad for Pac-12 fans right now because we've been there. It sucked. Like it was not fun. And as Big 12 fans, by the way, we've been there like 4 times now, right? Yeah. You had you had Nebraska leave and A&M leave and Missouri leave and Colorado leave and all the, it's like, it's always felt like the Big 12 was this little brother, like not quite there with some of these other leagues. And, Larry Scott almost destroyed the Big 12 not that long ago. What was that, 13 years ago now?
Yep.
And it's like, man, that flips around and it just feels secure. And that's kind of hard to imagine if you think back to the 2021 when Texas and Oklahoma left. I would have never guessed that the Big 12 would have been able to put themselves in this position. And what were we screaming from the rooftops? Expand, 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 expand. You've got to expand. And they did. Yep. And they didn't do it with names people thought about. So maybe this list of teams for the Pac-12 is ultimately going to stabilize things if they can get, 3 or 4 of these schools in there and, just try and steady the ship a little bit and stall it out. Or I just don't know. I mean, the ACC is the answer for them right now, but I don't know what you can do. I mean, that media deal isn't up forever. And again, we keep hearing from a legal perspective, it's ironclad. Like these schools can't get out of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just always think about how resilient this Big 12 conference has always been. Going back to the days of the Big 8 and then the Big 12. And then you've got Nebraska, Colorado, Missouri, A&M all leaving. And that very well could have been the death blow for the conference. And they stabilized with West Virginia and TCU. Like that's how they stable. And it's worked. It's been viable ever since. And then you would think, man, Texas and Oklahoma leaving, like, what are you going to do? Even the former commissioner, I will never forget Bob Bowlesby going in front of Congress and talking about how the Big 12 was going to lose 50% of its revenue and painted this really bleak, terrible future and outlook for the conference. Here comes Brett Yormark, and he's from day one been aggressive. I mean, this conference has been so resilient. I don't have a ton of sympathy at all for the Pac-12 and really even for the fan base of that conference because so many people inside the conference and outside have stuck their nose up in the air regarding the Big 12. I've seen things on social media like calling the Big 12 the truck stop conference and the flyover states conference and like no respect whatsoever. And look at us.
I take
we're
that as compliments, by the way. I think that's endearing to this part of the
world.
But
what I'm saying is that there's been such a shift from 2 years ago to now. It's kind of like when Texas and Oklahoma left for the SEC, and you could hear it from the West Coast to here. Like, oh, Big 12 is going to die. Like, this is not going to work. And we're great. We're the conference of champions. We're out on the West Coast and everything is great. And then UCLA and USC announced they're going to the Big 10. And then the power dynamic has shifted ever since. Brett Yormark, aggressive in getting a media deal done. Brett Yormark, aggressive in bringing in the American schools. Brett Yormark, talking about how he wants to go shopping in the Pac-12 publicly. And this was a year ago at Media Days. And it takes the Pac-12 commissioner to say, I don't know if we're open for business. Well, clearly you are, because Colorado is now gone a year later. They're coming back, and they're probably not going to be the only ones. I don't have a lot of sympathy because of the way that the Big 12 has operated the last 2 years versus the way the Pac-12 has.
It's sympathy to the fans. Look, I say this all the time. Like, social media voices are not accurate to reality. They're just the loudest and most obnoxious of society for the most part. Most people, if I went and talked to, people that I know are fans of some of these schools, they don't feel that way. They just want to watch football like the rest of us, right? They just want a good product and they want to watch it. It's people that make a living covering it that are the most afraid and the most obnoxious on social media. That's just the reality of it. So I don't think that we should ever, pretend like these people who are constantly trolling on the internet are, the accurate representation of a fan base. I think when you hear it from administrators, Tommy, it bugs me, right? Like when I hear ADs of some of these schools thumbing their nose, that bothers me.
Yeah.
But fans are going to be fans, man. And like, they're not going to care. Oregon fans aren't going to care ultimately if they're playing in the Big. You think Oregon fans are going to care if in November they're playing a massive game with CFP implications against TCU, or if they were playing that same game against, I don't know, USC? Like, It's real easy to let go of that stuff, I think. Conferences, these rivalries and, that stuff means something, but it doesn't mean everything. And being relevant means everything. At the end of the day, that's all we want as fans is for, what we cheer for and consume to be relevant. That's why you get so defensive when people accuse you of not being relevant. That's why K-State and KU fans get so annoyed with each other, because K-State fans feel like KU doesn't think they're relevant. So you have to like put up this wall or this shield, and that KU fans are this snobby, snooty, whatever. Like, that's just being a fan, man. Like, it's okay. And I do want all of these schools to survive and thrive. And I hate the idea of the Big Ten and the SEC separating themselves in any way, because that's not fun. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants that. I don't even think fans of those schools really want that at the end of the day. I mean, you get it. The SEC plays a regular season. You already get that. We don't need more of it. It will be seismic. Here's what I'll predict to you, Tommy. The next thing that happens will be seismic. It'll be big. Like, Colorado was meaningful and really important, but I don't think it was the big one, right? It was like one of the tremors before the big earthquake. That's still coming, and I think it's probably coming a whole lot sooner than the Pac-12 thought it would, certainly, but it could be coming real soon. If Oregon goes, oh my goodness, if Oregon goes.
I'm ready for it. Let's go. It's been what the Big 12 has been waiting for over 2 years now. And nothing against the American schools that joined. That wasn't a seismic shift. It was a good Band-Aid for the issue that the Big 12 had in place, right?
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready for a seismic shift. Like, let's go. The Big 12 is due. Let's make it happen.
We see them every other week. I'll tell you what I'm ready for the seismic shifting to be done for about a decade. That's what I'm ready for. But there's another one coming. 869-1240 is the number to call. We'll come back. Did you see Shohei Ohtani yesterday? Holy smokes. Maybe the Angels were onto something by not letting him go. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, having some fun with you as we get ready for the weekend. Congratulations to Keith for winning those Wichita Wind Surge vouchers. We'll continue to give away more prizes as we make our way through the summer here. Surge, HTO, been fun to give away. We'll continue it as it's almost the fall, almost school time. We got Major League Baseball coming down to the fall, and the Major League Baseball trade deadline. I assume we're going to have a ton to talk about on Monday morning with the trade deadline, that we'll see a lot of things happening this weekend. One thing we will not see happen is Shohei Ohtani go anywhere. And man, over and over again, we're just reminded of, you got to be kidding me. Throws a shutout, complete game yesterday, 9 innings, comes back, hits a couple of home runs in the next game. Looks like he maybe has a slight tweak of something on the home run, and there are going to be cramps, and he'll be right back in the lineup today. Amazing.
I don't know what to say. I mean, the superlatives are ridiculous, and they have been. I really hope that people understand the magnitude and the significance of what we watch with Shohei Ohtani, that we've never seen anything like it, and I don't know if we ever will again. It just, the fact that he went out a couple of days ago and pitched tremendously, gave up like a couple of hits, and that was it. And then the very next day hits multiple home runs. I mean,
that was on the same day. It was a doubleheader yesterday.
Right. It was incredible.
Unreal. Angels, can they be real contenders? They went and made a big aggressive move, so we'll see. Look, if this all helps him keep Shohei Ohtani and he ends up staying there, like, it'll be one of the great front office decisions and moves like we've ever seen. If them hanging on and taking that shot and getting aggressive somehow gets them to the postseason, or even just like convinces him that they're trying to win and he stays, it will be brilliant work by that front office and ownership to make it happen. Because the reality of it was, the baseball thing to do was to trade him, right? Like,
For sure.
It was bold not to when they made that call and then went out and got Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez. And, we'll see. I think I want him. I don't like the Angels at all. Let's be clear about that. But I want him in the postseason so badly. Like, he will elevate baseball to must-see television if he's playing in the postseason, period. Like, he's already must-see TV, but it's kind of hard to see him, right? Because he plays on the West Coast, and you don't get to just watch all the baseball games, which is a real problem, by the way, Major League Baseball. But if he gets into the postseason on national television, must-see TV. I mean, just imagine that. He's going to go out there and start the game for you, and he's arguably the best hitter in the game right now.
We're only a couple of days away from the trade deadline. I don't remember the last time, and maybe it hasn't happened for me at all. I don't remember the last time I was excited for the playoffs right now, like before the trade deadline. Typically, you get into September, and then it's like, all right, the playoffs are almost there, and like right now, I mean, we're in July, and I'm like, man, with the new rules that have made baseball so much more fun to watch, I love watching playoff baseball in general. And then if you've got stars like Ohtani that potentially can make a run and get into the postseason, I would imagine that we're going to see probably a pretty decent ratings bump, I would think, with the postseason this year for baseball.
Sure. Any game he plays in anyway, which will just further, set the value of him in the offseason, and why it's just like, well, yeah, I guess you could justify paying him $60 million a year. By the way, hey, $60 million a year seems crazy. Isn't that what Jaylen Brown just got in the NBA?
Yeah.
Right? Like, is it really that crazy? I mean, Shohei's going to play 150 games at least for you, and draw ticket and draw gate that many more times than Jaylen Brown. And I know you only have to pay 5 guys in the NBA, but if Jaylen Brown's worth $60 million a year, Shohei Ohtani's worth $60 million. Shohei Ohtani might be worth $80 million a year.
Jaylen Brown can't dribble with his left hand, and he's making $60 million a year.
I
but
like Jalen
Shohei
Brown, the
Ohtani,
player.
I mean,
This isn't a Jalen Brown knock. Let's take, let's take whoever, Dame Lillard, and his close to that. Like, if anybody is worth that in the NBA, Shohei Ohtani's worth it in Major League Baseball. They play more games. They present a bigger opportunity for, the league to earn. And the other reality for Shohei is he's the most marketable player now. He has quickly become the most marketable player in the game across the sport, right? So not only is everybody in an Angel Stadium going to be wearing Shohei gear, people across country are going to be wearing Shohei gear. Like the number that he's going to reach this offseason, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to blow us away. Like, could it be 10 years, 700 million, 10 years, 800 million? I mean, the Saudis were ready to offer Mbappe $1 billion for like a year.
Yeah.
I hope they don't get in the baseball business and want to buy Shohei Ohtani. Like, come on now. It's crazy to even think about it. And it's one of those things too, like you'd love for your team to have him, but then you get into that world and you're like, yeah, maybe we'd be okay just watching from the sidelines though.
Yeah.
That's just so staggering to think about. Oh man, Major League Baseball. I do think, Tommy, Monday, we're going to have a ton of trades to be talking about. And, for the Royals, we just kind of hope they get in the business in some capacity and somebody comes knocking. It is a seller's market. There's no doubt about it. And now that Shohei's off the market, teams are going to probably be more desperate and willing to go do something, and that's good for the Royals.
Yeah, I'm a little underwhelmed with the players that are speculated to be on the trade block. I mean, who do you got? Cody Bellinger, Marcus Stroman, Lance Lynn is probably on the trade block. There's really nobody that like really gets me excited. But that being said, you get to the final day of the trade deadline, you go crazy.
Team like the Mariners, Tommy just said they might be. There's a report they may be interested in trading some of their young pitching, which is really fascinating to see if something like that would happen. I still predict it'll get pretty crazy. It just hasn't happened yet, but there's a lot of time left. As we know, these things all happen last minute. 869-1240, the IHOP hotline. We'll come back. We'll wrap it up, tell you what's coming up this weekend, what's on tap.
Patrick seminars and lose the weight or stop smoking guaranteed. Only $49.99. Saturday, August 12th at the Spring Hill Suites by Marriott Wichita Airport in Wichita. Weight loss seminar starts at 11 a.m. Registration at 10:30 a.m. Stop smoking starts at 2 p.m. Registration at 1:30 p.m.
Patterson Diesel is the way to go. Call 550-0000.
Visit Maximum Outdoor Equipment and Service in Andover for your
All right, everybody, that's it for this week of Sports Daily. Coming up on the weekend, regular programming until 7 tonight, Royals Twins. Then on Saturday, you get Royals Twins at 6. And on Sunday, that series finale coverage begins at 1 o'clock. Appreciate everybody for joining us this week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll have a big week next week with the Major League Baseball trade deadline and training camp in full swing. Tommy, enjoy the weekend.
Sounds good. We'll see you back here Monday.
For Jad Chambers and Tommy Castor, I'm Jacob Albracht. We'll see you Monday.
Sports, lighter news, and great comedy with Bob and Tom Mornings, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
That's all right.
Wichita.
Where else
Always
would you
live
rather
on the
be?
Free Odyssey app.